Hey everybody, welcome back to the Lisa Lash's School of Music YouTube channel. My name's Abby and today I thought it'd be cool to go over some mixing techniques that I like to use to get my kick drum to sound, I guess, a little bit beefier in my mixes. So you will see I've kind of set up a little demo session for us to kind of work through at the moment. I have switched all my plugins off. I haven't set my faders to 0, so I'll do that. And I'm just going to walk you through why I've chosen certain plugins, why I've chosen the parameters on those plugins, and just go through them individually to show you how they have benefited my mix. So I guess we will just play and see how everything sounds before it was mixed. So we can hear straight away that the bass is crazy loud, and so is the hi-hat. So I almost don't even need to listen to bring these down quite a bit already. So we can hear just through volume that the kick has already got like a lot more room to breathe and be heard against the bass. The next thing I would kind of look to doing when I've kind of got like a rough volume that I'm happy with is panning or positioning of your instruments. You'll see here that I've already panned the snare and the pedal hat to how I would pan it if I was playing drums. I find that's the way I prefer to pan drums, but some people prefer to pan it if you're an audience member looking at the drummer. So it's kind of up to you what your preference is on that. But with the bass and the kick, traditionally, these are obviously instruments which are panned in the middle, and they don't really move from that position in the majority of genres that we have. So this is, I guess, more of a dance style that we're working in today. So kick and drum definitely have to be pan center to match this sort of music. So I would look to kind of going in, what are some other ways I can control the dynamics or the volume or the shape of the instrument that I'm trying to like make stand out more? Or how would I control the dynamics of other instruments so that instrument can stand out more? So I was kind of exploring sidechain compression. And sidechain compression is basically a sort of compression where when a certain instrument is triggered, the instrument that is compressed to that instrument will go down in volume. It will be compressed. So in this example, or like in this demo, we want to sidechain the bass, and that means that every time the kick is triggered, compression will come down on the bass, and it will just duck the bass, just not a crazy amount, but enough amount that the kick will continuously be the predominant thing in the mix. So it's a really common thing in a lot of dance music where it creates a sort of ducking effect. I don't really want to create that in this example, so you may not hear it so much, but you will hear it enough that when we solo, or sorry, if I mute everything else, you will be able to hear it when we do just have the bass and the kick. So first I will play it without the sidechain compression activated. But now I'm going to switch it on. So you will hear that like the kick is just like, it hasn't got any louder, the bass has just got quieter. So you can hear the volume in the bass has increased a lot now I've turned it off. So the ratio also controls the compression of the bass. The threshold is what is essentially how much compression is happening when the kick is being triggered. So you can hear that's when it's off essentially, and this is when it's a bit more extreme. So I quite like the balance that we have at the moment. All the compressor does is really make an instrument quieter. So sometimes you'll have to like make up the signal a little bit with make up gain, which I've increased the bass by 1 dB for this example. The next thing I would kind of look at is, now I've shaped a little bit more of the bass sound, I want to look at how we can make the kick stand out a little bit more. Because in terms of when we put the whole track together, the kick is still a little bit lost. Like, it's trying to come through, we can hear it, but it just needs to be shaped a little bit where it doesn't feel like it's fighting so much with the bass anymore. So I reached for something called an enveloper. I'll put on my compressor so you can see the sort of parameters I chose to do that as. But I really want to focus on this plugin. This plugin allows us to control the attack, decay, sustain and release of an instrument. And if you're not too sure how the parameters work, I'd really read up on sort of the envelope of sound. It's a really useful thing to sort of understand how this plugin can work to your benefit. I have decided to sort of alter Logic's preset of Add More Punch. So you see, if you've loaded that up, it's a little bit different to mine. And you will see why I didn't choose to go with Logic's preset. So if I just solo the kick, that's it with the enveloper. If I turn it off, you'll see like the sort of sub element of the bass has been taken away when I turn this on. So similarly, we can hear how the compressor has really made the kick quiet. So I maybe want to ease things off a little bit. The attack's maybe a bit too much. So you can really hear how that's changed the kick sound a lot. Which is why when I applied these tools, like, although I like the sound that they make overall, in terms of the mix, in context, the kick now has like lost a lot of presence. The attack really comes through, but this is why I was looking at adding other kick sounds to this example. So I'm just going to take you through the acoustic sample that I decided to work with. So obviously this hasn't been mixed in terms of volume, so I'm just going to drag that down to a balance that I like. So it just provides like a bit more, I guess, like more of a human element. It's not another machine-like sample, which is something I really liked about it. I've given it like quite an intense compression, just so it kind of sounds like a bit more explosive in a way, like in terms of like the release comes down quite fast. So in terms of EQ, this is when you want to like look at what you can do to make the sound of your kick drum become less muddy and more clear. So when I do EQ, I kind of like to do it with the whole track playing, so you can get a context of like how it sounds all together. So I'm going to unsolo and I'm just going to have a sort of play around with the EQ that I've set already. this is here the EQ before the compressor. It's just a sort of corrected EQ. So those frequencies are kind of being cut before they come to the compressor, which is something I usually do with basses. So like 500, 100 hertz are usually problem areas. If you're experiencing muddiness, that's usually the frequencies it's coming from. So if you highlight 100k, you'll hear there's like a lot of rumble. So now I've kind of added EQ to like the main vocal instruments. I'm now basically going to solo each instrument and kind of show the importance of how the plugins have affected it. So we'll start off with the main drum machine. So without compression, with compression. It's just like really toned down some of the instruments that like jump out in terms of the volume that we maybe haven't applied multi-output to. So some of them are like jumping out quite a lot. So now let's look at some EQ. Try and calm down some of those high frequencies that are coming through. So there's a lot going on like 3-4K. You can see 1K is like another frequency I really don't like. Again, there's a lot of muddiness coming from that little bass hit. So essentially all I'm doing with the EQ is just finding frequencies that like are just like quite noticeable to me, and I'm just toning them down a little bit so they're just not so present. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to unmute everything and just go through the mix so far and see if we actually even need to consider adding this third kick. So we can hear like when we've added that sub kick, it's adding like so much more presence to the track, which I actually feel is needed now that I've heard it on. But there's a lot of like a weird rumble, which I'm just going to see if we can fix with some EQ. So you can see like I've really just tried to dead the sound as much as possible, so we can essentially just get the sub to beef up the kicks that we have at the moment. So although the volume in retrospect to the other kicks is the quietest, it's actually adding like the most body to it. I really think it makes such a difference, but there's still a strange sort of rumble that I don't like. Again, I think it's just 100 being a problem area again. So yeah, I've just decided literally to low pass essentially this EQ, so I'm just really allowing the low frequencies to cut through. But I'm just going to slowly add everything in, and I think hopefully this should be the last thing we do. I think we've got quite a good mix going on. Now the moment of truth to see if it all copes with the bass. Yes, that kit is really coming through now. Cool, I'm really happy with that. I think we should do the moment of truth. What my favourite thing to do is, like, when working on mixes, is I turn off all the plugins. I keep the volume rather the same, but let's just have a listen literally before and after to how things sound. So we'll keep the volume, but the plugins have all turned off. So we've got our compressors on. So you see, like, in terms of how it started off, we've got like a really well-shaped mix now, with the kicks that we've added. Even when we turn the plugins off, you can just see the difference of just like volume and adding extra instruments. But the EQ's really helped just clear away the muddiness we've had from added 2 extra drums. And there we go. That's pretty much what I do with a mix this size. If I was with maybe like 10 more tracks or so, kind of like a little bit more of a larger mix, I'd look at doing things like applying a drum bus. So with all these extra kicks, I'd put them all into a bus and just put a single compressor on it, and that will help just, I guess, make it sound a bit more like a glue and help make the kick just sound like one big one instead of individual ones. I hope you've enjoyed.